Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you've all had your ice cream, because obviously that's very important that we all get ice cream and we're all duly hydrated. This session is entitled How to Enhance Your Cybersecurity Career Through Regional Alliances. Just by way of show of hands, just before we get into the presentation proper, could I just find out if you are members of any kind of regional user groups or clusters or any kind of community where you get together on a regular basis to talk about cybersecurity? Now, show of hands. Okay, so a few of you are, but others aren't. Okay, so that's good to know. Okay, so we are going to talk about this in quite a lot of detail today, about the power of alliances. And I think it's important before we do that, however, is to have a bit of an introduction about who I am, so that you get an understanding of my career and my background, so that you can at least see how I've used alliances and partnerships throughout my entire career to get to do the things that I get to do. So, my name's Gary Hibberd. I've been in cybersecurity and information security for about 35 years. I've worked for large organizations, the likes of GE Money. I worked for Sainsbury's. I worked for RSPCA in the past. And a variety of smaller organizations that, to be honest with you, you probably will have never heard of. So the smallest client, the smallest company I ever worked with was an entrepreneur. So it was literally a one-man band and helped them implement information security. But over that 35 years, I've worked with a variety of different people to get to a point where I'm asked to go and speak internationally about cybersecurity, organizational resilience, business continuity, risk, standards, etc., and of course, good old cybersecurity from a technical perspective. But that is lesser and lesser, and it's more and more now around talking about things like fraud and cybercrime and how do we affect change in society. I'm invited to speak on the BBC. I've been invited to speak, as I said, around the world. And I'm also being invited to contribute to various different journals and to various different books as well. And I've authored my own books as well. So the last book that you can see here, The Art of Cybersecurity, is a book that I wrote on my own. And it's not just purely me plugging the book, I promise. What I'm trying to show you here is that the majority of the work that I have been published in has been a collaborative approach. It's been me working with other people to develop work that is used, again, internationally. It's used in academia. It's used within law enforcement. But it's people working with me, or me working with them. I'm very lucky and very proud to have that happen. Just this last week, I was invited to speak at Amazon headquarters down in London, at the London Policing College, or with the London Policing College, with these group of individuals who were there to talk about, again, national and international cybercrime and fraud, and talk about mechanisms and methods that we could employ that would actually change the way that law enforcement works in relation to cybercrime and fraud. It's a collaborative approach. It can't be just one person who understands how to do all of these things. That's just not ever going to happen. This is why regional alliances and building alliances is so important. But what is an alliance? What do we mean by an alliance? Well, this is the definition. So these are the definitions. So an alliance is a relationship based on similarity of interest, nature, or qualities, the state of being joined or associated. And that's why I was asking earlier if you are part of any kind of groups, or are you, in any clusters already where you actually get together and you discuss information security, cybersecurity in its broadest sense. Now, some of you may have noticed at the beginning of this presentation, on the front slides, in actual fact, there was a logo sort of hidden slightly in the background there. If anyone noticed that, then well done. There's no prizes, but well done. I include it because I am a bit of a Star Wars fan, and I think Star Wars has many lessons to teach us when it comes to cybersecurity. And one of those, of course, is that the whole franchise would have been a whole lot different had the Empire just encrypted that USB stick, and it would have never been put into R2-D2. And of course, where's the network segregation when R2-D2 can just go and plug himself into any old USB port and seems to gain access to every single aspect of the Death Star? But enough of that, because we're not here to talk about Star Wars. But what we are here to talk about is what it does have to teach us, which is that Star Wars teaches us that you've got to have some clear objectives. And in your careers, if it's any surprise to you, I don't know, but you have to have clear objectives about what you are trying to achieve. So when you're thinking about joining a cluster or you're joining a group, you've got to ask yourself, what am I going to give to that group and what will they give to me? Because it's a two-way exchange. It's not just about what you can get from that group. It's about being stronger together. And I'm going to again repeat this message quite regularly here throughout this presentation, which is we can't just do this on our own. There's a multitude of skills in this room right now that if I was to look to protect an organization, maybe all of you could be involved in helping some of that. But you certainly all come from a different walk of life, a different perspective. You offer a different viewpoint. You have a different upbringing, a belief system, which again, together helps us better defend organizations that we are there to defend. So we're stronger together. But trust takes time. And what I would say to you again is if you are thinking about joining a cluster or if you are already a member of a cluster, that it's about a relationship. It's about coming together, working together, and when you've worked with a small group of people over time, you can contribute and you can develop your own skills as well as theirs, and you can become a part of that trusted community. So, okay, why is this important? Why do we need to have groups? Why do we need to have alliances? Well, let's be perfectly honest. The problem isn't going away. And when I talk about the problems, I'm talking about the kinds of things I was talking to the London Policing College just this week. The very size of the problems that we are facing with are just increasing all the times. The police themselves have recognized that actually the first responders aren't them, it's us. We are the first responders. We are the people who are the best and first and possibly last line of defense. The police aren't coming charging over the hill to protect us. The threats are only ever increasing. The globalization of the problems is only getting worse. And again, the conversations we were having about the difficulties that law enforcement has about tackling fraud and cybercrime is very simple. We're talking about a legal system that is ill-equipped to deal with the problems that we're faced with today. If you just think about the Computer Misuse Act. Who's read the Computer Misuse Act? Exactly. Very few people have read the Computer Misuse Act, but I can tell you right now, it is woefully inadequate for the world in which we live. And the emerging technologies that are there, we've got to be thinking about the Internet of Things. It seemed a complete alien concept when I was talking about cryptocurrencies and the frauds around those. And I was talking about how do we secure NFTs, which again seemed like alien concepts. Now, I only know about NFTs and cryptocurrencies, not because I'm an expert in that, but because I'm part of a cluster, part of a group that has professionals and specialists in those areas. And I can bring them to me and I can say, look, I've got this problem. I need to be able to solve. What can we do together? And of course, this heightened competition in business, again, is only ever causing us problems. Can I again, by way of show of hands, and I appreciate people on camera here won't be able to show their hands, but be thinking about this. Who here runs their own business? Who here works for a business? So you yourselves, you will know that in your organizations that commerce is only getting more difficult. We're looking for ways to improve our securities and to be more competitive. having good knowledge and skills in this area will absolutely help. And it's, of course, this increased demands from customers. Now, as I've already said, there's a problem that we face, that we ourselves can be fooled into thinking, well, I'm a one-man band, I'm a one person here, solo artist, I know cybersecurity, I'm really skilled in this one particular aspect or that particular aspect. Well, unfortunately, as the saying goes, no man is an island. You need to work together. You need to build those alliances. You need to build partnerships. Now, I'm going to tell you right here, right now, I've worked for small consultancies, I ran my own consultancy for a while, sold that to a larger business, and then I put that business behind me and I've now gone on to build my own business again. And I promise you that right at the heart of that business strategy is alliances. Building alliances, building partnerships is absolutely at the heart of what we need to do. Because it allows us to put skills, share creativity, exchange information, combine resources, collaborate, and work together. Putting all of those things together makes any one person far stronger than should I try and do all these things on my own. And again, as a person who's building my own business, I know I've got to go out and collaborate with marketeers, I've got to work with salespeople, I've got to work with financiers and financial experts. And that also includes some of the challenges that I face when I walk into a company and they say to me, Gary, I've got these issues around some of the apps we're using. I can't help you. We need pen testing. That's not my world. I can help you with these aspects of cybersecurity and information security, but I do have partners who I can bring in to help you with this. So where do we start? Well, we can start very simply. I'm going to ask you to do a little task here. So audience participation, straight after lunch. First thing I'd like you to do is take out your phones, please. I can see you all. Have you got your phones out? I'm looking at you. Have you got your phones? Everyone got the phones? Everyone's got the phones. Excellent. Everyone's got the phones. Okay. Can you scan that QR code for me? Don't worry. You're not going to get hacked. That's definitely not in my world. What I would like you to do is scan that QR code. That should take you to a LinkedIn page. It should take you to my LinkedIn page. I'd like you to connect, because what I will be doing is I will be sharing these slides. I will also be sharing some information about some of the clusters that we're talking about here. And also, just for fun, I would like you to send your most interesting photograph from the conference to that connection when you connect with me. And we will choose that name, one of those images and connections at random, and you will win a copy of the book that I showed you earlier, The Art of Cybersecurity. So there's an incentive. So you can go onto LinkedIn, you can start to build up alliances, and you can start to network through that particular medium as well. Now, I have worked with some individuals when I talk to them about networking, and I talk to them about connecting with other people and about going to groups. I've had some of them say, well, I like working alone. Well, unfortunately, you will get picked off. You will fall by the wayside. I've seen over the last 35 plus years of working with individuals who have said that they are lone wolves and they prefer to work alone. Unfortunately, they don't develop. They become obsolete. Funnily enough, I was talking to one of my fellow colleagues at the Yorkshire Cybersecurity cluster, Mike, earlier today, talking about how our knowledge quickly becomes obsolete in this world. I've been doing what I do for 35 plus years, and in all honesty with you, it's every 5 years, every 10 years, you have to renew, you have to refresh your knowledge. How do I learn? How do we learn? We work together. We learn by working together. So let's start now. And again, I'm very aware that it's straight after lunch, so we're into the snooze zone. I would like for us to start to understand how we can work together better. So, let's network. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to time you. You've got 5 minutes. What I would like you to do is come out of your seats and go and introduce yourself to somebody you have not met yet that's in this room. You've got 5 minutes. And I am watching you, so please do, out of your seats, go and say hello to somebody that you haven't met. And when you go and say hello to someone you haven't met, find out what their skills are. Yep, please go and say hello to someone. For anybody who's watching online, then you can just obviously go and take a look on LinkedIn, go and take a look at various groups that you think you should be a member of. Go and take a look around the LinkedIn groups, but not just information security, but broader than that. So don't just keep to your own lane within cybersecurity. Think about the other kinds of areas, so governance, risk and compliance, the areas that maybe you feel uncomfortable with, incident management, business continuity. Is that your area? If it's your area, then go and speak to some of the more technical aspects. That's a great way to be able to start networking just online. Okay, guys, so just 1 more minute and then we can take our seats again. And just also for those people watching online, what I like to do, what I find really interesting is to actually step even outside of our industry. Go into the HR groups, find out what HR think about information security. What do finance directors think about cybersecurity? What are they talking about? Because if you want insights, I think being online, going into LinkedIn groups, you're almost like a ghost. You can wander through a party, listening into conversations, and you can find out what their true concerns are, what their worries are. And then that translates into business. So when you're sat with your finance directors or your HR directors or your operations directors or your CEOs, you can actually talk in the way that they understand, and you can explain that you understand their problems. It's a great way to build your networks as well. Okay, guys, can you take your seats again, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Hopefully you've made some new friends. That's awesome. And that's what it's all about. So networking can feel awkward sometimes because it feels quite forced, because you don't quite know how to start the conversation maybe, and not everybody just loves walking up to complete strangers. And starting and engaging in conversation. It feels alien. It's not something that's taught that often in schools, I don't believe. So it can feel quite alien to us. But there is another way. And this really is the mainstay of this presentation. And this is what I'm trying to get you to understand, is that there are mechanisms. There are absolutely LinkedIn, and there's loads of groups that you can go and join, and you can be a silent observer. What is it they say? Lurk more. You can always lurk and just sit in the background, just listening in and passively taking on this information. Or you can engage. And that's what we really want you to do. We really want you to do that through a cluster. Now, there is a stand outside that you'll have seen, which is the Yorkshire Cybersecurity cluster. We have a number of our members here this afternoon. So I would encourage you to go and say hello to them. But the Yorkshire Cybersecurity Cluster is a part of a bigger group. It is part of a national group, the UKC3, the UK Cyber Cluster Collaboration, and it's about driving regional sector growth through UK cyber clusters. Its mission, and I'm not going to read this to you because you can read yourselves, but ultimately its mission is to grow the ecosystem. It is to nurture talent. It is to develop a network of professionals and professional groups who can come together, who can drive national and even international initiatives. Its mission, in short, is it exists to drive economic growth in the sector. It's about networking, knowledge exchange, sharing of best practice. And there's some key words in there. Some really key words that you need to take away. You need to absorb this information because it's important if you are going to develop as part of one of the clusters. It's opportunities for regional and ultimately national growth. I believe one of the reasons we love what we do is because we feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. It's certainly the thing that drives me, and it's the thing that has driven me for the last 35 years, that I feel like I'm contributing to a safer world. Now, you can only do that in part by working for one organization or starting your own business. But by being a part of a larger cluster, it allows you to have that influence. Now, there's a lot of words on here on these screens, and again, I'm not going to read them all out to you because I think it's more important that you understand, you take some of this away with you, which is why I wanted you to connect to me so I can provide these slides for you. But as it says here, it's about developing that ecosystem, stimulating innovation, and addressing the cyber skills gap. Is there a cyber skills gap? It depends on your point of view. But certainly within most organizations, and certainly within ourselves, there are gaps. There are gaps in our knowledge because we can't know everything. But working together, we absolutely can pull the perfect team together. And when you think, even when we think about hacking and hacking groups and we think about APTs, we know that it's not just one person carrying out a particular attack. It's a social engineer. It's somebody who's good at coding. It's somebody who's good at with apps. It's somebody who's good, understands IoT devices. It's somebody who's good with whatever it might be. But it's a team of people who come together to perpetrate those actions against us. And yet we find it alien to then put ourselves into a position where we're working with collaboratively with other people. So we need to do that more often. Now, there are a number of strategic aims and strategies that the UKC3 have put in place. First of all, it's about strengthening the UK's cyber system, ecosystem, as I've already mentioned. The second is building a resilient and prosperous digital UK. Who doesn't want that? That's what we would all want to be a part of. It's also about taking the lead in the technologies vital to cyber power. I've spoken to a number of you out there, and some of the technologies that are being used and some of the developments in place, I think is significant, it's magnificent. And certainly I wish that this conference would have happened last week so that when I went to spoke at the event for the London Policing College, I could have taken some of your insights to that event, because I learned so much already today. It's also about advancing UK global leadership and influence for secure and prosperous international order. It's not just about the UK, because we know that. We talked about that earlier. It's a globalization. It's a global problem that we're facing. So these strategies that we're looking to employ, of course, are extremely important. We have a number of objectives or strategic objectives, and they are simply these. And that is that we need cluster development, we need cluster collaboration. That's what KC3 is all about. Because even a recognition that there are clusters, but they can't work in isolation. They need to work together. It's all about promoting clusters, which we're doing today, and again, about growing the network, which hopefully, following this presentation, you will all rush out and look for your own cluster to become a member of. And it's about representation. How are we going to do that? Well, of course, there has to be a framework. There's enablers. The way that we do this is really important as well. But the structure is there. It's there for you to actually participate in, to be a part of, and to contribute to. We need you to be a part of that system, because without you, the ecosystem fails. Just like, again, the Rebel Alliance, it needed many people to be able to come together to be able to be successful. It wasn't just down to one person. Talking about this individually, again, what I would just like to just point you to is this idea about growing cyber skills. So with the UK cluster itself, the UKC3, it's about not just you coming along and we absorb all of your knowledge and take you and, leave you as a husk on the ground. It's about developing your skills. Who here, I asked the question earlier, who here read the Computer Misuse Act? Very few hands went up. How many in this room have read the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation? Who's read it? Excellent. Who would consider themselves an expert in it? Okay. And I would only leave my hand up because of the fact I've been a DPO for 20 years. But by being part of the cluster, you can learn and you can understand about how cybersecurity and information security assists with things like GDPR. What are your skills gaps? Because you've got them. I've got them. We've all got them. Of course, this collaboration, as I've already mentioned, it's about developing this ecosystem. It's about working together. And it's about also directing funds in the right place. This is a government-backed scheme. So it's not like we're just asking you to volunteer for these things. Of course, that is pretty much what we are asking. But when it comes to events, when it comes to major initiatives, there is funding that is available from national government to be able to assist to push this agenda. Of course, this promotion, of course, is about capturing good news stories. We want to develop ourselves, but we also want to make sure that we're working with individuals and we're working with organizations to promote the good work that cybersecurity professionals are doing. And it's about growing the network. Now, in terms of the network itself, I asked earlier who's a part of any particular group or any clusters. So again, there are clusters up and down the country that UKC3 have put in place. So depending upon where you've travelled from, there may be a cluster that's quite close to you. And I would urge you to go and seek out those clusters. They'll be on LinkedIn. They will have their own websites. But can I ask again, by way of show of hands, who here is in the Yorkshire region? So quite a few of you. Okay? You need to be seeking out the Yorkshire Cybersecurity Cluster if you're not already a member, and become a part of that community. So you can again contribute. And you can help us represent who we are. We can represent the stakeholders' engagements, building stronger relationships, Tech UK, DCMS, and DIT, etc. We have greater representation if we work together. And I've already mentioned it. There is money to be given to us, to clusters, for organizations to be able to develop cybersecurity. You can be involved in these conversations. Just like I was with the London Policing College, that came about through collaboration and conversations and networks that opened up to me through working with the cluster, and then the people that I met at the cluster. And then they identified some of the skills that I have that perhaps were needed in that particular area. Or just the fact that, and I fully admit this, that I was there purely to represent what I term as the common man. We had some major large organizations in that room talking about some major initiatives, but they seem to have forgotten the SME. They forgot about the small organization. They forgot about, the entrepreneur who's just set up a business and hasn't got a clue about cybersecurity. And they are represented within the clusters that we put together. They represent all of these areas because they know that it's important. It showcases our capability. We build partnerships with academia, as I've already said. Some of the initiatives that we're working on within the Yorkshire Cybersecurity cluster is to work with local businesses to, again, develop their cybersecurity skills, to teach children about cybersecurity and hopefully engage with them so that they believe in a career in cyber is something that is worth exploring. And Lord already knows that we need more women in cyber, so going into schools and really inspiring the next generation of female hackers and social engineers would be amazing. To be a part of that, I think, is absolutely vital, because we again need that diversity in thought and in action. So it's essentially a platform for innovation, collaboration, and knowledge exchange. So it's a call to arms. You need to join your local cluster. So again, if you want to take your phones out and take a picture of this, feel free, but hopefully you've connected to me and I will send you these slides anyway. And I'm looking forward to seeing the most interesting photograph. Keep them clean, please. That you have, and again, we'll pick your name at random as part of that. But join your local cluster. within Yorkshire, I've already mentioned it several times here. I'm very proud to be part of the cluster itself within Yorkshire. Our raison d'etre is exactly the same as that within the UKC3, which is to have regional resilience or to build regional resilience. It's also for innovation and growth. And we're always looking for ideas. We're always looking for participants, to people to come along to the cluster itself and to be able to assist. And that nurturing of cyber talents. We're always looking for people who can come along who might have a different viewpoint, a different idea. And if there's ways that we can help you to develop in your area, if you have a question, if you have a problem, then as a team, we might be able to assist and support. Now, what does it do? What does the clusters do? Typically, well, ours, most specifically, we have weekly support of the modules for Cyber EPQ. We have monthly webinars. And we have a website with blogs. So if you're a budding writer, or if you're interested and you want to contribute, then you can write blogs, and we will happily take those blogs and feature them on our websites. You can join the cluster, come along to a meeting, meet different people. We will discuss different topics. As I've said, it's not just about talking about one particular aspect. For any one of you here who is a member of, as I've said, any kind of group that is here that talks purely about web apps, or you're here just purely because you're developers, or you're here purely because you do pen testing, or you're here purely because of the fact that you do IoT, that's great, and you should be part of those ecosystems. But you're only going to reaffirm what you already know. You might learn some new tips and tricks and ideas, but with a cluster, and a cluster like the Yorkshire cluster, you're going to learn something brand new, because we're going to be talking about data protection. We'll be talking about data ethics. We'll be talking about privacy. We'll be talking about online safeties bill. We'll be talking about some of the technical aspects. So this very week, we were talking about web and email defenses, and we had some great speakers coming in, experts, to talk about those particular aspects. I certainly learned something new on every single session that we hold, because we don't talk about the same kind of things every single time. Cybersecurity is far more than just the nuts and bolts and the flashing lights. We know that. We'll have experts talking about social engineering, for instance. And in terms of the actual cluster itself, well, here are our steering group. Some of our steering group are in this room right now. And I am going to ask, because we've got about 10 minutes, so I am going to ask at the end, because we are coming very quickly to the end, a couple of the cluster members to come down here just to talk about what they've got out of being members of the cluster itself. But I am going to say, in terms of finishing my part of the talk, what I would say to you is that, in conclusion, there are all of these different kinds of groups that you could be a part of. And in essence, we are stronger together if we work together. And the final message I will give to you before I ask a couple of the cluster members to come down is actually, I read a book, or I read a book, and every day it has a different quote, a different thing. And on the July the 21st, the day before I put some of these slides together, this was the inscription that I read: made for working together. Whenever you have trouble getting up in the morning, remind yourself that you've been made by nature for the purpose of working with others, whereas even unthinking animals share sleeping, and it's our own natural purpose that is more fitting and more satisfying. Marcus Aurelius. And what I would say is, if it's good enough for Marcus Aurelius, then it's good enough for us. We need to work together. So, with that, could I just ask a couple of the cluster members just to come down and assist with the last 5-10 minutes of the presentation? Shaz, would you like to come down? Alex? Thank you. So, it's the same question to you both. Just a few minutes. Ladies first. So, what would you say you've got most out of being a member of the cluster.
Right, okay. Can you hear me, yeah? Okay. I'm Shahzad Zagari. I'm course leader for Cybersecurity with Forensics. And the first time when I heard about YCSC, it was when it was a security event, and I noticed that it was to do with our region. And I thought, oh, this is a great idea to join, find out what the demands are in industry in order to help and improve our courses and be able to improve a students' skills and after graduation they could find jobs. So just improving the courses that we're offering to the student here. So that was the first idea I started. I didn't know how much benefit I got out of this. So basically, I've got a group of so lovely people I work with. I learn every day something new, and this is something that I really love. And then we help each other, we help people, and it's just so fulfilling and satisfying.
Perfect. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks. Alex, introduce yourself and then...
Yeah, so my name's Alex Martin, Business Development Manager, basically in sales for cybersecurity. Reason why I joined the cybersecurity cluster was more for the networking side of things. I think there's a few phrases out there, but the man who says he knows everything probably knows nothing. And also, if you can't explain an industry or a topic succinctly and quite quickly for everybody to understand, you don't understand it enough yourself. So I joined the cluster to network with people from within cybersecurity, again, to share our stories. There's some funny stories out there as well. Anybody wants to connect to me, we'll have a chat and have a good laugh at some of those guys as well. But it was, again, knowledge is power, and getting the stories that are out there from other people's experiences in the industry so that you can then take that information and translate it to other people in your network that you're talking to. I think that is key. Just keeping the flow of information going from one group to another, from one person to another, making sure that everybody kind of understands what's going on in the industry, how it's affecting everybody, and honestly, how we can all work together and collaborate to make it a more safer place, really.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so with that, thank you ever so much, Shaz. Thanks. I would just like to thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, feel free. If you do have any questions, please let me know. Are there any questions? One at the back, yes.
Basically, I wanted to say, with all the work we have to do, take for instance, if you're a platform engineer, you have so many things to look at, from code execution, platform provisioning. You seldom have the time for networking. I'm speaking from the mind of many engineers. How do you create time to network like this?
Okay, so for benefit of those people on camera who might not have heard that, we're all extremely busy. So your point was that we're all extremely busy. How do you find time for something like this? I would say, how do you not find time? Because you can, certainly in terms of efficiencies, being more efficient, some of the things that we do talk about on our clusters, and some of the people that are in there will talk about different ways of working which will improve you. So you may find that what you're doing actually is you're working quite inefficiently, and some of the tools that you're using could be improved. You could have a better process for doing some of the engineering that you're involved in. So by almost taking a step back and looking at the problem in its entirety, it will help you to move forward faster. So it's slowing down to move faster. And I think there's an old analogy, and I don't know who said it, but it was about sharpening your axe. And it was I won't give you the full story, but effectively, someone once asked, if you were to cut down a tree, if it was going to take you 10 hours to cut down a tree, cut up that time, how would you go about cutting down that tree? And they said, I would sharpen my axe for 9 hours, and then I would go to work on the tree. Or You could do it the other way, and you can just go straight at the tree, doing the same thing with a blunt instrument, and for the next 10 hours, go at it, hard slog, working wholly inefficiently, but you will still fell the tree. Which way would you prefer to work? So I don't know if that answers the question, but I think for me, it's about taking that step back and then working more efficiently. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir. So the question being, is there a charter ship to standardize the industry? Not so much of the industry. I think certainly at UKC3 there is an intention to have all clusters operating in a very similar way, so they all have a very similar structure. I think that would ultimately be the desire. But every cluster is relatively autonomous and can operate it however it wishes to operate. But fundamentally, I think that is the desire because of all the strategic aims that were mentioned earlier. There's no desire, I don't believe, for them to create a standard that all organizations would follow, like, ISO 27001 or, various other different standards. But certainly the idea is that the hope is that all clusters will operate in a similar way. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. Thank you ever so much for your time. I hope that's been of use. And again, the Yorkshire Cybersecurity Cluster table is just outside. Please go and have a look and sign up. And hopefully we'll see you at the next event. Thank you very much.